Okay, for the last day or two, I've been following the fallout of Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon leaving Fox News and CNN, respectively. And some of that fallout has been pretty hilarious. So let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Fallon, one of the few TV personalities who's still employed. Fox News announced that they are parting ways with Tucker Carlson. It's easy to make jokes about Tucker being gone, but now who's going to tell me which M&M is most woke, you know? Fox knows their viewers are going to miss Tucker, so until they find a replacement, his show will be hosted by a golf shirt with the collars popped.
A golf shirt with the collar popped. Hilarious, because golf is horrible, it's posh, it's elitist. Just like Tucker Carlson, not like regular old Jimmy Fallon here, slumming it between his downtown Manhattan apartment and his $6 million mansion in the Hamptons. A golf shirt with the collar popped. I wonder what they'd get to replace Jimmy Fallon if, God forbid, one day he were to lose his job.
That no-talent ass clown became...
Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. Couldn't have happened to a better guy.
Ah, Alexandria OcasioCortez. AOC, do you ever take a day off? She finds time, even in her lunch break, to make narcissistic, passive-aggressive TikTok videos, dunking on news anchors when they lose their job from the passenger seat of her publicly funded chauffeur-driven car.
What I will say, though, is... while I'm very glad that the person that was arguably responsible for some of the largest, driving some of the most amounts of death threats and violent threats, not just to my office, but to plenty of people across the country.
I knew it. I knew it wouldn't be about public safety or some bullshit like that. Really, it's about her. The TikTok video that she's making from her good side in her car. Yeah, her TikTok video is about her. I'm getting death threats. Okay? And that's Tucker Carlson's fault.
I also kind of feel like I'm like waiting for the cutscene at the end of a Marvel movie after all the credits have rolled. And then you see like the villain's like hand reemerge out to grip over like the end of a building or something.
Shut up, bitch!
But deplatforming works. And it is important. And there you go. Good things can happen.
Okay, so that's a nice segue. It's a nice segue into what I want to talk about now, which is the idea that Tucker Carlson has been deplatformed. That notion that Tucker Carlson has been deplatformed is the insane wet dream of woke idiots like AOC. He hasn't been deplatformed. He's just gone his separate ways. He and Fox News have gone their separate ways. For whatever reason, that will become clear, I'm assuming, over the next few days. We're going to have a look at what Tucker Carlson has said today. But the idea that he's been deplatformed, he's their biggest star. He could just set up a YouTube channel tomorrow and he would blow Fox News out of the water because they're the only reason that he is the only reason that anyone is watching Fox News. From as far as I can tell, he's their big star. He's their big draw. For one reason or another, Rupert Murdoch doesn't want someone that controversial in his corporation. I think there are rumours circulating that Rupert Murdoch's latest fiancée got a little bit too religious at a dinner party with Tucker Carlson. And that he wasn't a fan of that, being a demonic, shape-shifting lizard like he is. He doesn't really like God very much. But whatever the reasons, Tucker Carlson is still very popular, right? There are a lot of people who would watch him, whatever he's there to talk about. Now, I don't think that this is the case for Don Lemon, and a lot of people who like Don Lemon are celebrating it, saying, yes, he can go off and do his own thing. I don't see it. I don't see Don Lemon setting up a YouTube channel and millions flocking to watch his daily rants, really, frankly. But you never know. I don't know. Maybe he'd have a new lease of life away from CNN and he could say what he really thinks. I think the problem might actually be, though, that he is saying what he thinks too much. But unfortunately for Don Lemon, neither his bosses nor the audience really want to hear it. You know, it's a shame that the last few years of human history have really, they've pitted us one against the other, you know, divide and conquer and all that. You've got the rise of social media. Do you remember that, when social media rose and we were there and we were going, oh, look at it rise. And anyway, social media, the rise of social media has led to people, some people, not everyone, but some people living in their echo chambers and becoming hysterical messes every time they have to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't agree with them. And Don Lemon, unfortunately, is a victim of that, this period, right? I think he didn't used to be like this, right? He used to be able to have coherent conversations about all kinds of social issues. In fact, he came across as conservative a lot of the time when he was speaking to left-leaning guests on his show. I'll get into that a bit later. Let's go with the Tucker stuff first, because we got this normal-looking lady. This lady is doing the rounds on the left-leaning mainstream media.
What is it about the culture at Tucker? Because listen, as someone who covers him and covers him as a force that threatened democracy until Friday night.
Tucker Carlson was like a force that threatened democracy until Friday night.
It falls in this category of shocking, not surprising. What was for you, as someone inside Fox, shocking about the culture at Tucker coming from Maria's show?
Now, I know all of this don't judge a book by its cover stuff. Bollocks. But don't tell me she doesn't look shifty as fuck. Anyway, I guess let's just hear her out. What was the culture like under Tucker Carlson? Well, this is Abby Grossberg, Gross Abby, explaining to MSNBC just how she managed to pluck up the courage to make that bold, stunning and brave move of leaving Tucker and then shitting on him all over the media.
So in addition to the misogyny and the sexism and the anti-Semitism, there was also just this sort of moral growth with me where I reached a breaking point because of all of those things. And I literally did not want to do it anymore. It felt disgusting. I stopped watching news when I came home. I didn't watch anything. I just didn't want to because I was so depressed and disillusioned by the entire media system because of Tucker Carlson.
I'm calling bullshit. I reckon they weren't happy with her. She's a narcissist and decided to take them to court. Accuse them of what's the easiest thing to accuse conservatives of? Racists, misogynists. I could be totally wrong. Maybe they are a bunch of racist misogynists over at Fox News. I don't know. She just looks shifty. Anyway, let's take a look at what Tucker Carlson has said this morning about, well, not why he was fired or why he left. We're not really sure exactly, but he's hinting here at what he thinks about the state of corporate news media, I think. And I think his analysis is pretty accurate. And I don't know, you might disagree with everything he says, but I don't think you can really argue with what he says here.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues?
So it seems quite likely to me that Tucker Carlson perhaps didn't want to continue at Fox News because he wants to go and be free to do his own thing. I don't know if that's true, but I think there were probably differences between him and management. That's clear, right? They weren't happy with him or he wasn't happy with them. Clearly one of those two things or a combination of both have happened. And it seems that the reason he might not be happy, if that was the case, was that he feels leashed, a bit restrained as to what he can talk about. And he wants to go in a different direction. Again, I don't know. Maybe there's something else. But that would seem believable to me, that he could now go and set up a podcast and talk about whatever the hell he likes. And I think he'd do very well. In the case of Don Lemon, I don't think that is it. I think he's gone nuts. And CNN have got sick of him. Look at this, a couple of his most recent meltdowns.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful about saying that politicians aren't in their prime.
We need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about prime for being president?
What the facts are. Google it. Everybody at home. When is a woman in her prime? It says 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Yeah, so Don Lemon got in a bit of hot water a couple of months ago for those comments. They said it was quote-unquote misogyny because he was talking about when a woman's prime is. But the problem for me wasn't that it was misogynistic. It was just that it was so obviously partisan, what he was saying. They were referring to some comments by Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina, when she said that politicians over the age of 75 probably need to take mental competency tests, which, obviously was a dig at Joe Biden, I think. But he then went on a rant about how she's not in her prime. She was, I think, 51 at the time. Not in her prime for what? Exactly. What are you talking about, Don Lemon? You honestly think that a 51-year-old woman is comparable to an 80-year-old man, right? I mean, you don't think that. You're just so desperate for your team to get the W, right? That you'll say anything and then you don't know how to get out of it. And the two women sat with you saying, what are you talking about? We're not in our we can't we can't be politicians at 50, but Joe Biden can be president at 80. I mean, it is sexist, but it isn't, because he's not doing it for sexist reasons. He's doing it because he's so blindly consumed by the noise of the echo chamber he's living in. And as I say, he didn't used to be like that. Here's another clip of him doing something mental more recently.
With due respect, I find your explanation reductive and actually insulting, including to black Americans, to say that black people today, compared to 1964, 1865, haven't made progress in part because of the freedoms we secured. And the Second Amendment was part of what secured them that freedom.
I cannot keep a thought if you guys are talking to me in my ear. So hang on one second. So to say that black people, say what you said again?
Black people secured their freedoms after the Civil War. It is a historical fact, Don. Just study it. Only after their Second Amendment rights were secured.
They were not secured their freedoms after the Civil War. That is not. You are discounting Reconstruction. You're discounting a whole host of things that happened after the Civil War when it comes to African Americans, including the whole reason that the Civil Rights Movement happened is because black people did not secure their freedoms after the Civil War, and that things turned around. People tried to change the freedoms that were supposed to happen.
And you know how they got it?
They
got their Second Amendment rights, and they actually got the NRA played a big role in that. But today, Don, the NRA
did not play a big role in that.
They trained black Americans how to use firearms.
That's a lie. That's not. The NRA did not play a big role in that.
This is just historical fact. But Don, the part that I find...
Just because you say it's historical fact.
The part that I find...
Just as he's saying to Vivek, it's not a historical fact just because you say it's not a historical fact. Well, it's not a historical fact just because you say it's not a historical fact. It's just he's lost his power of rational, calm debate, which he did used to have. He was a much more nuanced person a few years ago. Let's just finish this clip and then I'm going to show you what I'm talking about.
Insulting is when you say today black Americans don't have those rights after we have gone through civil rights revolution in this country.
You are sitting here telling an African American about the rights and what you find insulting about the way I live, the skin I live in every day.
Here's where you and I have a different point of view.
Black and white that black people don't have in this country, and that black people do have.
Well, here's where you and I have a different point of view. I think we should be able to express our views regardless of the color of our skin. We should have this debate
I'm not saying you
without me regarding you as a black man,
but
me regarding you as a fellow citizen. That's what I think we should say.
Whatever ethnicity you are explaining to me
whatever ethnicity
about what it's like to be black
whatever
in America.
Ethnicity I am, I'll tell you what I am. I'm an Indian American. I'm proud of it. But I think we should have this debate. Black, white, doesn't matter.
I think we should have this
on
debate.
The content of the ideas.
If you're going to do it, you should do it in an honest way and in a fair way. And what you're doing is not an honest and fair way. Okay? We appreciate you coming on.
With due respect, Don, I look forward to continuing that conversation.
Thank you. The conversation.
Thank you
so much.
It's just completely unhinged. You know, he's screaming at another person of color, you know, an Indian American, and telling him he can't have any opinions about anything historical. They can't have any kind of rational debate because Don Lemon's black. And you can't tell me what it's like to live as a black man in America. Well, yeah, but you can surely talk about facts, right? You know, he didn't, as I say, didn't used to be like this. In fact, I think he came across as far more conservative than many of his guests in the past. And he's lost his way over the last few years. And, well, I'll just show you what I mean.
Pay attention to and think about what has been presented in recent history as acceptable behavior. Pay close attention to the hip-hop and rap culture that many of you embrace, a culture that glorifies thug and reprehensible behavior. Because black people, if you really want to fix the problem, here's just 5 things that you should think about doing. Here's number 5, pull up your pants. Walking around with your ass and your underwear showing is not okay. In fact, it comes from prison when they take away belts from the prisoner so that they can't make a weapon. By promoting the use of that word when it's not germane to the conversation, have you ever considered that you may just be perpetuating the stereotype the master intended, acting like a nigger? A lot of African Americans took offense to that too, and I wondered if I gave the right advice. I really did. But confirmation came the very next day on my way home when I exited the subway on 125th Street in Harlem. This little kid in a school uniform, no older than 7 years old, he was crying his eyes out as he walked down the sidewalk with his mother. I'm going to be honest here. She turned to him and she said, "I'm sick of you. You act like an old-ass man. Stop all that crying, nigger." Is that taking the word back? Think about that. Now, number 3, respect where you live. Start small by not dropping trash, littering in your own communities. I've lived in several predominantly white neighborhoods in my life. I rarely, if ever, witness people littering. I live in Harlem now. It's an historically black neighborhood. Every single day I see adults and children dropping their trash on the ground when a garbage can is just feet away. Just being honest here. Number 2, finish school. You want to break the cycle of poverty? Stop telling kids are acting white because they go to school or they speak proper English. Over the course of a career, a college grad will make nearly $1 million more than a high school graduate. That's a lot of money. And number 1, and probably the most important, just because you can have a baby, it doesn't mean you should, especially without planning for one or getting married first. More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock. That means absent fathers. And the studies show that lack of a male role model is an express train right to prison. And the cycle continues.
Well, there you go. You see what I mean? What news corporation wouldn't prefer the old Don Lemon to the new hysterical echo chamber mess Don Lemon? Eh? Really? Honestly? So, what have we learned today? What haven't we learnt today, eh? I reckon, and I know I could be wrong, I reckon Tucker Carlson's fine with being sacked by Fox News or having left Fox News, whatever it turns out has happened. I reckon he'll do just fine with his podcast. And Don Lemon, I expect to have some kind of nervous breakdown / hissy fit. We shall see. But if I know anything, and I think the last 20 minutes have made it patently obvious that I know a lot. What a bloody mess. I'll see you in the next one.